We're talking about Cerydra again. I know, I'm farming the fuck out of her. However, it's because this is truly one of the worst kits, if not the worst kit I've ever seen in a beta in my time overlooking betas. And I just recently realized something. Now, everything I said before on my value list for Cerydra doesn't change if you run sustainless. For those who don't know, I made a value priority list, polling list for Noxa and for Phanon. And for Phanon, I said you go for E2 first. Lyone and Cerydra are kind of tied depending on, what you want to go for. If you only want to put in one cost, I'd get the Lyone. If you want to, invest long term, I'd get Cerydra because of her E1 and her S1. And then after that, it's like Sunday, right? But something that I kind of failed to consider is sustain teams, right? Because Don Heng is coming. In fact, Don Heng is the rumored free 5-star that was announced by Owlbert in, I believe, the 3.4 live stream, right? So if Don Heng is free, the likelihood of him elevating Phanon's sustained performance, especially after all the leaks we've been getting even before he was announced free, is very high, right? If you have Sunday, this means Phanon will automatically get 50% more damage boost. And Phanon already in his kit gives himself 45% if there is a sustain, shielding, or healing him. So Sunday Don Heng synergy, not including anything at all that Don Heng has in his kit, would give Phanon 95% damage boost, which is usually an over 20% final damage increase, right? So if you were doing 1 milli before, you would now be doing like 1.2 milli in a sustain team, right? So that's how it goes, and this isn't including his summon's own damage, some buffs he probably has in his kit, some debuffs to apply, no different to like Avin, right? So the reason why Cerydra arguably loses in value to putting one cost into Don Heng is because E0S0 Cerydra is like currently calced at 20 to 25% better than any other options, right? Before V3 it was 15 to like 16%, right? But now it's like 20 to 25 because of the Respen edition. Now do keep in mind that Cerydra, half of her buffs aren't active for most of Phanon's hits. This is why she looks underwhelming in calcs, but you see like big dick meteor damage whenever there's a double meteor for Phanon, right? The reason is all of Phanon's other attacks that aren't double meteors are just weak. Like if you were to use almost any other support options, like maybe Robin, Tribby, RMC, like all those characters, they would give better overall amp for all of Phanon's attacks, unlike Cerydra, who basically, it's all the double meteors. If you're not doing a double meteor, the damage is pretty sad, right? So this is why 20 to 25%, if her buffs were active all the time, it would probably be like 30 to 40%, right? So there's that, right, for people who want to understand. So the reason I believe Don Heng may be more worth it to invest into than Cerydra is because of his Lyone. Hyacine's Lyone gives 18% vulnerability, or puts 18% vulnerability on enemies when Ika attacks. Lingshaw's Lyone does the exact same shit. It's also 18% vulnerability. So Avin's Lyone, 10% vulnerability, but he's older than both of these guys, right? So very high chance that Don Heng's Lyone has 18% vulnerability in it. And in a Phanon team where literally no one is providing vulnerability unless you're running him with Tribby, this would just straight up be an overall 18% damage increase for him on all of his attacks, right? Then, alongside this, the Lyone doesn't only have vulnerability. In fact, Hyacine's Lyone has a personal speed buff, a personal damage buff for the Memo Sprite, and as well has a gimmick that drains HP from all allies for better Cassie charge. So if we were to transfer this into, let's say, Dan Heng's light code, the equivalent will probably be turning the speed buff into defense percent increase. The HP drain from allies would probably be giving a small amount of energy to allies, right? Leading to better stacking ability for Phenon. And then the increase, Eka damage, that would go to the summon, obviously, because it is leaked that Dan Heng's summon can make it into Phenon's ult, and Phenon and ult does not need sustain. Like, it just isn't a sustain issue with Phenon and ult. So, high likelihood that Dan Heng isn't actually really all that focused on sustaining for Phenon and ult, but instead sub DPS damage, no different to Hyacinth, right? And so here are what the requirements are that Dan Heng needs to meet to, be higher value than Cerydra or the same value, right? Dan Heng needs to do probably 1 million damage in an E0 S1 sustain team, right? For Phenon in a single ult. He probably needs to do that Droma summon, needs to do 1 million damage at least, right? And then this combined with the Light Cone's vulnerability, the other buffs it provides, the damage boost with the Sunday synergy, and likely whatever else they put into his kit, because he will for sure have other buffs, obviously not just reliant on Sunday and a Light Cone, right? This is an overall greater damage increase than Cerydra, right? This is pretty much guaranteed a higher damage increase than Cerydra overall for a Phenon, right? So that is the issue Cerydra has currently, being only 20 to 25% upgrade. If you already run Sunday plus Branya with Phenon, and you can like 1 or 2 ult most of the content, then Cerydra might actually have no pull value as of her current V3, right? She can be changed, she can be buffed. I think she will get buffed, right? But as of current V3, since Dan Heng is leaked to be free, just get his Light Cone. If his Light Cone is very similar to Hyacinth's Light Cone in value, it's a very, very good chance that for sustain teams, Dan Heng plus Light Cone is a better overall increase for Phenon's performance than actually pulling Cerydra herself. And the chances of Dan Heng becoming useless and power crept, like Cerydra becoming useless and power crept, is like miles apart, right? Like, as you can see, people still use Avon over a year later as one of the top sustains in the entirety of the game. People already threw away their Jiao Qs now that Heisland's Silverwolf and as well as Cypher can all be used in an Acheron team, and sometimes just straight up better than Jiao Q, right? So I highly recommend, if you plan to run Phenon with sustain going forward, I highly recommend, if you want to go for Cerydra, first wait for Dan Heng's beta, because his beta will be out before Cerydra comes out, right? It's like, I believe it's like around nearly a month away, right? And check the Light Cone. If the Light Cone is similar to Hyacinth's, and he is made to have a little bit of bias for Phenon alongside the Sunday synergy, in sustain teams, Dan Heng will be noticeably more valuable than pulling Cerydra. Right. The other thing with Cerydra that people don't consider, you're constantly watching sustainless comps. If you play a sustain team, stacking for Phenon's ult is a lot more annoying when you're not running 2 action advancers alongside Cerydra and sustainless. It is more annoying to try and get to a second ult, right? So if you're running like Cerydra plus Sunday, stacking is not going to feel good, right? It just isn't. So Dan Heng, I have high stocks in him. We'll see. He's like the yearly preservation. And yeah, that's all I got to say. Love y'all. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great night. Peace out.